Last Sunday, no doubt all of you read a Sunday newspaper. Well, the newspaper that most of you read was the Sunday World. It sells over 400,000 copies every week in Ireland, including 100,000 copies in the north of Ireland. So what is it that makes the Sunday World so successful? So for some night of shame, shock, horror, revelations, let's go talk to the editor, Colin McClelland.
You have to understand that the Sunday World was launched not to compete directly with the existing newspapers that were on the newsstands at the time. There was an awareness, and indeed market research showed that there was a need in Ireland for a newspaper that would give a different front page headline on Sunday morning, would give colour in the newspaper, and would deal with the news in a different fashion than the existing newspapers. And I think that's how the success of Sunday World was born, that it did take a different tack and it did offer an alternative publication on Sunday mornings. Colour was the main thing. If you didn't have colour, you really couldn't produce a paper like Sunday World. You could produce something very close to it, but you couldn't produce the Sunday World. Technology in newspapers is still fighting with colour. I think, in fact, that we are, in Europe, probably the leaders in newspaper colour, and that's because we've been at it for 14 years.
Well, what's so special about colour? I mean, is it something to do with the TV generation?
I think it is. I have a pet theory in that tabloids themselves have evolved in direct response to television. Now, whenever I was born, I can remember there was no television at home. You listened to the radio, and I can remember the first television arriving at home. But I think most of the people who read Sunday World at the moment were born with the box in the corner of the room, and their reading habits were influenced by what they saw on television. That television itself flavoured the way they were prepared to receive information, and that television certainly shortens people's attention span. You cannot allow people to be bored on television. It has to be short and snappy. And I think that tabloids, and indeed Sunday World, picked up on what was happening to the people who were buying newspapers, and that was they were being dreadfully influenced by television. We tend to look at the people who read the paper, and we have a very good picture of who those people are through market research. And we tend to say then what sort of stories will interest these people who read the paper. We wipe out completely stories that we think will bore people. There's no sense in publishing a story because you feel that you should publish it. You publish a story because you think that there is some interest amongst your readership in that story and that they will identify with the story.
Do you deliberately go out looking for your own stories?
Yes, we do, but we also find that an awful lot of people will phone in with stories. A large percentage of the stories which appear in Sunday World are as a direct result of members of the public phoning the newspaper with either a complaint or a grievance, and we investigate that through to a point where either we would clear up the grievance for them, which may not even appear in print, but that is part of our philosophy, that if the public come to us with problems, we have a separate department which never really sees the light of day, no one ever talks about it, that investigates the grievances and the problems. People perhaps who can't pay their rent or have been thrown out of their house or have some other domestic problem like that wouldn't make a news story. We do help them out as far as we are able. Sometimes it becomes a news story. We always print what we believe to be true, but we also have lawyers checking all our stories and advising us what the outcome of the story might be, and then I must take, as editor, a conscious decision as to whether I'm about to involve the company in what could be a very expensive court case for the simple reason of exposing someone in the newspaper. Sometimes that decision has been taken, and we have gone to court, and we have won.
Well, to sort of take a funnier angle in some ways, I mean, a lot of the stories you're talking about there are actually the headline on the front page. Now, even though you haven't actually had the sort of, Boy George and Night of Shame, Mercy Dash, Tug of Love type thing, I mean, is there, like somebody once said to me at the board meetings, is there a comedian in here to do the front page headlines? They are a bit sort of like, let's see how funny we can make this almost.
No, it's not how funny we can make it. It's how eye-catching we can make the headline. If you accept that the Irish reading public have the biggest selection of Sunday newspapers to choose from than any other country in Europe, and they're faced with...
Is that true, yeah?
Oh, yes, it is, yeah. That is, when you consider all the Irish newspapers and all the British imports, which are dumped here at very low prices because the British publishers can afford, in a 4 million print run, to print maybe an extra 20 or 30,000 for Ireland and dump them here at a very low price, just to keep their own circulation figures up. We're competing with them as well as the other Irish newspapers. So you must have something in page one which is going to arrest the eye Now, people know what Sunday World is. We don't have to say on the newsstands, this is Sunday World. They can recognize it at a glance as they walk past. But I think someone did research on this, and the average newspaper buyer looks at every front page for something like 2.8 seconds. And in those 2.8 seconds, you have to grab the person and make them stop and say, I'm interested in that, or I would like to buy it. So yes, the headlines can be a bit bizarre, if you like, at times, and they may not, or you may not think they reflect accurately what the story is, but we do take a little bit of artistic license with headlines simply for that reason. You're selling your newspaper, you must get the person to stop and look at it. And if you can make that headline just a little bit out of the ordinary, they're more likely to look at it than a headline that says, for instance, small earthquake in Peru, nobody killed. I mean, that's not the sort of thing that sells newspapers.
Well, then, if a gap was seen in the market by the Sunday World when it started out that has now become so successful, the obvious one then is, why not a 7-day-a-week newspaper with colour?
The technology you need to produce a 7-day-a-week colour paper is quite staggering, and the capital investment in that is quite staggering. So anyone going into it would have to have researched it so well that they would have to be absolutely sure that it worked. No one has, I think, in Ireland come to that stage yet. You must also remember that in Britain you have a potential readership of maybe 3 or 4 million people a day, and you don't have that potential in Ireland.